It's been an interesting couple of weeks in the worlds of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai, as we've been getting a lot of leaks and rumors that both seasons are going to be getting legacy characters appearing in the shows with brand new toys around the exact same time, which is something that's never really happened before, so let's talk about it. Hello everyone, it's thomasjujube, and today we're going to talk a bit about some of the rumors and leaks about Kamen Rider Decade appearing in the upcoming Kamen Rider Gotchard season, and the Kyoryugers appearing in later episodes of Ohsama Sentai King-Ohger. Before I begin, keep in mind that I have a couple of videos out already about Gotchard and King-Ohger, so if you want to hear my thoughts on those actual seasons or what's to come in those seasons, make sure you check that out. Today's just going to be about stuff we don't really know 100% yet, so it could get a bit wishy-washy. So let's start with the King-Ohger news, which is basically confirmed at this point, and it's not as confusing. We have a bunch of DX toy listings, which means this is stuff that's happening in the show, and it basically is confirmed at this point. So what we know is that later this year for King-Ohger, we are getting the Gaburi Caliber toy and a new version of Gabutira, which can turn into Kyoryugen, both of which are of course from Zyuden Sentai Kyoryuger, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. So that is what we know is happening for sure. We're getting these new toys. What is speculated, but basically also kind of confirmed at this point, is that Kyoryuger is going to be reappearing with the Gaburi Caliber, and he's going to use it to transform into a new upgrade form. It's been described to look like a fusion of Kyoryuger Carnival from that show and our normal Kuwagata Ohger. Meanwhile, the new Gabutira is going to replace God Kuwagata in the King-Ohger combination to create a new form, which we don't have a name yet. It's probably going to be called Kyoryuger or King Kyoryuger, King-Ohger, King Kyoryugen. Mix a lot of names around, I guess. All of this is apparently going to lead into a Kyoryuger V Cinema, where Kyoryuger will use the power-up, and also some sort of YouTube series about the Kyoryugers. Apparently, Kyoryuger is also allegedly staying in Kyoryuger, And on top of all of this, Kyoryuger himself is apparently going to be staying in King-Ohger, the show, for a bit before I guess he leaves into the specials and the V cinemas, I guess. I haven't seen Kyoryuger, so it's not like I'm excited to see them back, but I think it's very interesting to get legacy characters back like this in the show. It's happened before in Super Sentai, but not to this extent. In Zyuden, we got the Gokaijers coming back for a few episodes to debut a power-up, but also Zyuden was an anniversary season, so it's of course, the other anniversary season's gonna appear. And we've gotten some cameos with crossover items in the show, like Don Momotaro appeared in Zenkaiger with Don Zenkaio, but that's a bit different because that was the actual mecha of Dawn Brothers, so it's just more of a factor of Dawn Brothers being this weird sequel to Zenkaiger. In Dawn Brothers itself, we also got the King-Ohger mecha appearing with the Don Oni Taijin mask, but again, that was kind of a, here's a cameo of the next show, and it just had a little thing to tie into the current show. We've never had an older season come back with new toys to match the current season. The Gokaijers did use new Ranger keys when they appeared, but those were in Zyuden Ranger keys, and they were still Ranger keys. It wasn't like they were using Zyuden gear. This sounds like it would be Kyoryuger using the King-Ohger equipment as a new sword, in addition to hijacking their mecha, and then it's also being used to advertise a bunch of other V Cinema special stuff for them. There isn't really any mention of all of the Kyoryugers, or I guess it wouldn't be all of them because there are 10 Kyoryugers, and introducing 10 characters even briefly into King-Ohger feels like a lot, but at least the main 5 or 6, there's not really any mention of all of them are appearing, but we definitely know that Kyoryuger is appearing so that he can use the power. And then on top of that, it's said that he's going to be a new cast member in the show going forward, which would just be really strange to me. I don't see that one happening, especially when Don Momotaro was rumored to be appearing for the rest of Zenkaiger, and he didn't. He was in one episode, so I could see this happening for 1 or 2 episodes if the actual characters appearing and debuting a new toy. And then maybe the toy goes on to be used by the King-Ohgers. That would be pretty awesome. But I don't see King sticking around. But hey, maybe he does stick around. And I called him King because that's his name in Kyoryuger, I believe. And it makes the connections between everything really interesting. Because if you look at it, it's the 10th anniversary of Kyoryuger, so they want to do something to celebrate. But why in King-Ohger? Kyoryuger was called King in that show. That was like a nickname he had. Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is his mecha, means King of the Tyrant Lizards. So, you know, King, like the show we're watching. But also, like, if you take out lizards and it's King of Tyrants, King of Kings. But, like, the actual motifs don't really mix. Dinosaur bugs is weird. And then it would be dinos and knights, essentially. And we have a Dino Knight Sentai. So it's just really funny. It's like, this is just Ryu Soldier, but if it was two separate things. And I don't know, it's just like, they're not going to do something for Ryu Soldier, of course, because they're only doing it because it's a Kyoryuger anniversary. But it's just a very interesting situation. It is basically confirmed that Kyoryuger stuff is happening in the show. These items would not be DX, retail, and leaked to us unless they were happening in the show. And I'm just very intrigued to see how this is all going to shake out, because, like, is it going to affect the plot at all? Is King just going to show up in this random new Earth with this new toy? Or does he get the new toy here so that he can go use it in the Kyoryuger special? Are they gonna form King Kyoryuger in the V-Cinema thing also? I don't know. Also, I guess this is fun for the Kyoryuger fans, that I guess it is assumed you will be getting some kind of V-Cinema, or at least some kind of special celebration of the show, even though the year is almost over. That is still happening, so that's cool. Happy for the Kyoryuger fans. Again, I haven't seen it, but I like Dino Charge, so, and I like the suits, so it'll be cool to see. So, at this point, I'm just speculating about stuff. Let me know what you think is happening, or if you're excited, or whatever. The Kamen Rider stuff is a little confusing, so let's get into it. I know we've got a bunch of, like, other Gotchard leak stuff happening. I think we have the full catalog of the first, like, few months of the show, but I'm not getting into that. I'm focusing on the Decade stuff. Now, before we got any mention of this Decade stuff, we do 100% know that Gotchard is using cards, because we've seen the suit, we've seen the cards, and we know that there's some sort of motif with the cards. The two cards he uses will have to add up to 10, and then he's got the X's and stuff to represent 10. And Decade, Kamen Rider Decade, means 10 represents 10 years of Kamen Rider. 10 and 10. So there's that connection, there's stuff we already knew. There's this leaker named Iron Hang, which is basically where this started, where he said that Masahiro Inoue, I'm just going to refer to it as a he. Is it a he? Is it a she? I don't know. So anyway, he said that Masahiro Inoue would be the tertiary rider of Kamen Rider Gotchard. If you don't know who Masahiro Inoue is, that is the man who played Kamen Rider Decade in Kamen Rider Decade, and in every Kamen Rider Decade appearance since then. Now, at first, this led us, myself, and many others to believe maybe it's just a Grease in Build situation. Now, if you didn't know, the actor who played Grease in Kamen Rider Build, named Kohei Takeda, he played Iksa in Kamen Rider Kiva, the secondary rider that season. I think he's a pretty prominent part of that show, and he's a pretty popular character. And then they brought him back as the tertiary rider of Kamen Rider Build, which, again, I just realized they're both tertiary rider stuff happening here. Now, the situations feel a bit different, because there was definitely some time between Kohei appearing as Iksa in Kiva and then Build happening. Masahiro has appeared as Decade a lot since that initial season. Like, it wasn't, when Kohei appeared in Build as Kamen Rider Grease, he basically hadn't appeared as in a show since Iksa, I believe, in Kiva, whereas Masahiro was Decade as soon as the Decade vs. Geo specials that were just a couple of years ago. So he's pretty fresh, like, in the mind of the fandom as Decade, to the point where if you bring him back as the tertiary rider, it's like, it's just Decade. Everyone just will see Decade. The point I'm trying to get to is, it was a question of, is this just the actor playing a new character like Grease did, but he's so iconic as Decade, it's like, I feel like he can't show up as a different character unless he was Decade. And the things line up for him to just come back as Decade because of the cards. Now, this part is basically confirmed that the tertiary rider of Gotchard looks like Decade. Like, the rider form looks like Decade, and he uses single cards instead of two cards, and the single cards are a 10. Like, instead of using 2 to add up to 10, he just has a 10. So that fits, you know, with everything that's happening here. And then on top of that, apparently he's supposed to have Legend Rider powers. Do you remember what Kamen Rider Decade's whole thing was? He turned into past Kamen Riders. So things are kind of lining up. At least we have 100% that the tertiary is a Decade reference. The thing we don't have 100% is if the actor is Decade himself. If we assume, okay, this is the actor, this is Decade's actor coming back. Now the question is he playing Decade or not? Because if he's not playing Decade, right, it's just a weird reference to make. It's just, here's the actor who's Decade, he's in a suit that looks like Decade, he's using cards like Decade, he's in Legend Rider stuff like Decade. It's not Decade. It also just like Decade was the last card rider, I guess. That's the whole point of the reference, and now we're doing cards again. The 15th anniversary of Decade is next year. Maybe they're going off of that kind of logic. But then, okay, if it is Decade, this is Decade returning. He's now the tertiary rider of the season, and that's why everything looks like him. But, like, even then, like, are they going to call him Kamen Rider Decade? Is he going to use new equipment and stuff, and he's still Decade? Or is he going to get a new rider name, but it's still, everything is, it's the character of Decade, but he's got a new rider name. Either way, this has never happened in Kamen Rider before. Decade was in Geo with a new belt, but he wasn't really a main cast member. He just sort of reappeared every so often. And the new belt he had was just his old belt in a new color with new sounds. He still turned into the same suit. It wasn't like he was using the Jiku driver with the Decade Ride Watch to become a new Kamen Rider Decade. Now, last year, we did get Revi and Vice becoming Geats riders in the crossover movie. It was Kamen Rider Revi using Geats equipment and Kamen Rider Vice using DGP equipment. I guess not really Geats. But that was in a movie, so, you know, it wasn't as big as it happening in the show. And I think this is about the closest aspect to this that we have, because it does sound like it would be Decade back with new powers. Because just like, I can't wrap my head around Kamen Rider doing something with the primary rider. Like, I haven't even mentioned that. That's the thing that's crazy. It's the dude who led most of a show over 10 years ago, showing up again. And he's not even the secondary rider or the main rider. He's just a side character. He's just there sometimes as Decade, as a new suit that looks like Decade, a new rider. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Now, the thing that's really funny about this, with both Decade reappearing and Kyoryuger's reappearing in King-Ohger, is that it reminds me a lot of Ultraman, the Ultraman franchise, where they love to bring back older characters and older seasons in the new shows, even just like for a couple seconds, and give them new toys. In Ultraman Z, Ultraman G made a reappearance and used the Z Riser to get a new form, while in Ultraman Trigger, Ultraman Z reappeared and he used the Trigger Spark Lens, but he just transformed into his older forms. But then at the same time, we have the main villain of Ultraman Orb appearing as a side character in Ultraman Z, and they didn't even acknowledge it. Like, at first, they were like, here's the actor. He's playing a new character, don't worry. And then 5 minutes in, they were like, actually, it's the same character. And he got a new toy to match that season. So, like, are they gonna pretend it's not Decade? And then 5 episodes in, they're like, surprise, it is Decade. Look, he has a Decade form. This is why the King-Ohger one is so much simpler, because we just know it's Kyoryuger's appearing in King-Ohger, new toys. The question is just if they're gonna stay relevant or not. In Decade, it's like, we don't, even if he's not relevant or not, it's like, is it the actor reappearing? Is he getting a new suit? So yeah, I've got a lot of questions about everything that's happening, and I'd really love to know your thoughts about all of this hoopla. I've never said hoopla before, I'm never going to say it again. All the stuff that's happening in Geats, not Geats, in Gotchard coming up, in King-Ohger coming up. I mean, we don't even have Gotchard as a season yet, and we already have, like, all these questions that's happening. So make sure you let me know your own thoughts down in the comment section, and make sure you check out my Patreon, where you can get your name on screen here. You can also get the full footage of me talking here, and you also get the video early once I'm done editing all of that and stuff. And then if you can't do that, just subscribe to the channel, and that'll be pretty cool. And yeah, make sure you leave a comment, though, about what you think's happening, because I have no idea, and I hope to see you next time.